All right, everyone, what is up? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel. I'm joined by Daniel Starkind, and it's a tough one tonight. Tough loss for the Dodgers. Felt like things were on a roll. They took a lead late into the game, excuse me, and couldn't pull this one out. They lose 5-3 to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and we'll get into all the details. It was a big night for Mookie Betts, a tough night for Cody Bellinger. There's lots to talk about tonight. So we appreciate you joining us. We're going to get to the game in a moment. As usual, we've got a chat ready to go. So if you've got questions, if you've got thoughts, feel free to leave those in there. We'll stick with what we did last time, which is give us your storylines. What are the top three storylines? What are the top three players, 3 up, 3 down? Send those in the chat, and we'll get to those as we go. But again, I think the big story tonight is the bullpen. It's been great for the Dodgers. Tonight was a little bit of an exception. The Dodgers were up 3-1 going into the bottom of the 8th. They've got Blake Treinen coming in. And Daniel, I'll admit, when Treinen was coming in, I was already starting to worry a little bit about Jansen with a 1-run lead. Seager extends it to 2. They bring Treinen in, who's been lights out, and it was kind of a mess. What was your take when he comes in the 8th? Was there any thought in your mind that this was going to go this way?
No, honestly, he looked pretty good the first couple hitters he faced. He got a quick out, and then I think Turner made the error. I mean, it was a hard ground ball, so you could call it an error or a hit, and then things kind of went south from there. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of Dave Roberts responses for the 3 takeaways. The decision to intentionally walk Escobar, who's putting it mildly off to a slow start this season. He's hitting, he's hitting 133 and slugging 200. So he's the Diamondbacks version of Cody Bellinger so far this year. And it feels like Christian Walker is the new Paul Goldschmidt or AJ Pollock as a Diamondbacks player that just seems to always kill the Dodgers. So he comes up with the bases loaded. Now the go-ahead runs on base, and he hits the double, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah, so to recap the inning, as Daniel kind of hinted at, so Treinen starts off, he gets a strikeout to begin the inning. Marte grounds the ball up the middle, bounces off the mound, takes one hop in front of Justin Turner, who kind of stabs at it, and it gets in. So gets through to the outfield. He gets charged with an error. That's an interesting play. I mean, Turner is great, so I'm not going to sit here and question it, but he made no attempt to get in front of that ball, which is sort of the fundamental there. And yes, it took a bad hop, but it gets past him. And you're thinking still 2-run lead, Treinen's been really good. Well, then the next batter walks, Cole Calhoun works a full count, walks on 6 pitches. Then we get a ground out. Marte grounds out. Looks like it might be a double play ball, but it hits just softly enough. I mean, Starling Marte, that guy couldn't make solid contact it's in a good way all night. And so the runners move to second and third, and then you're left with this decision. Escobar is due up, and the Dodgers decide to intentionally walk him. As you point out, as of right now, Escobar is hitting 133 with a 212 on base percentage and a 200 slugging percentage. He was 0 for 3 on the night, coming in with a strikeout, and they decide to walk him. So I'm thinking the thought process there is they get to a right-handed hitter to face Treinen, the righty. They get the guy at first base so there's a force out anywhere to make the play a little easier on the infield. I mean, is there any explanation that could satisfy you, Daniel, as we're sitting here? Or do you simply look at Escobar and say, this guy's terrible? Christian Walker, by the way, on the season, hitting .333 with a .481 slugging percentage. That was his second hit of the night. So, I mean, is there anything to this for you?
I mean, Escobar's off to a slow start, but he's still a pretty good player. I think he hit like 36 homers last year and drove in 118 runs. So it's not like he's some scrub. But with that being said, as we've seen with Cody Bellinger, when you're struggling, you're struggling.
Yeah.
And I think that's the guy you want at the plate right there, regardless of, what hand he swings with, whether he's lefty or righty. I know Blake Treinen is typically better against righties. He has that sinker that moves into them and then the slider that goes away. So I could see, I guess, why they wanted the righty-righty matchup. But at the same time, I don't really like putting the go-ahead run on base there, because now when you give up a double, now you're losing by 1, as opposed to if you pitch to Escobar and he hits the double, it's a tie game and it's still, you're still in it. So that was a tough one. I didn't quite agree with that decision, as I'm sure a lot of other people didn't either. But yeah, that was kind of the turning point right there. I don't know if he would have got Escobar out, but I would have much rather seen that matchup.
Yeah, and I mean, looking in the chat, it's pretty clear that people are not Christian Walker fans, and tonight they're not necessarily Dave Roberts fans either. I think Matt Moreno from Dodger Blue, our friend, he even posted that Escobar hits lefties better than he hits righties. So it's not like Escobar, who is a switch hitter, it's not like he was presenting a platoon advantage of some sort.
Right.
And as you point out, I mean, the worst case scenario is exactly what happened. You're actually giving a free bag to the go-ahead run, which is, of course, what happens. Joe Kelly comes in, he gives up another run, and from there, it's all downhill. And so that brings us to, I think, the other big moment of the night, which is the last moment of the night. It's the ninth inning. The Dodgers are due up. They're down by 2 runs. AJ Pollock, I mean, it's brutal at bat to watch. He watches strike 3 go right down the middle of the plate and then turns around to complain about it. Oral Hershiser's like, sometimes you go back and you watch the replay and you realize that maybe you don't have so much to argue about.
Yeah.
But Matt Beatty does walk. Muncy can't do anything. And then Betts comes up and slaps a double. And all of a sudden, the tying run is at second base, and here comes Cody Bellinger. Now, be honest. Level of confidence when Cody Bellinger. Are you the optimistic guy that says, here it is, here's the slump buster, he's going to single, he's going to double, and everything turns from here? Or were you just like, this is a broken man, and there's not anybody I would rather have up, want up less than Cody Bellinger in that spot?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still Cody Bellinger, so you try to be a little bit optimistic, but the way he's looked at the plate so far this season, and especially tonight, has not been good. His swing, he made the swing tweaks in the offseason, and so far he's not seeing many results. Maybe he should go back to the old swing that won him an MVP award. But yeah, I wasn't too confident there.
Yeah. And first pitch, weak pop foul to the left-hand side. So he goes 0 for 5 tonight with a pair of strikeouts, I believe. Or maybe it was just one strikeout. 0 for 4 last night, 1 for 5 the night before. He's hitting 161 on the season with a 194 slugging percentage. I mean, we can get back to this game in a moment, but I do think at some point you start to have a little bit of concern. And I think there's a couple things you can think about if you want to talk about Cody Bellinger. And there's the optimistic view and there's the pessimistic view. I think the optimistic view is, guy won the MVP last year, nothing to worry about, he'll get it figured out. I think the pessimistic view is, maybe you look at Cody Bellinger's numbers and you say, at some point, do you start to ask yourself, was last year an aberration? I don't think we're anywhere near that. The guy was unbelievable. No. He comes with the pedigree, but it does feel different. Like, it doesn't feel like the slump of a guy like Justin Turner where you're like, he's going to figure it out. There's a piece of this when you just look at his face, it's like he's so in his own head that it feels like this could be a problem.
Yeah, and we've seen Cody go through these slumps before, and he'll break out of it eventually. I promise. He's not going to hit 130 with no homers this season. He'll break out eventually. He might not have an MVP season, but I mean, it's only 60 games, so the MVP could literally be pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
Might be Corey Seager, who knows? But yeah, it's a short season, so you're a little bit concerned just because he doesn't have a full 162 games to get it turned around. But at the same time, with the expanded playoffs and how much talent is on this team, they're going to make it to the playoffs regardless of what Cody Bellinger contributes. Mm-hmm. So if he hits 150 in the regular season and they make the playoffs, and then he somehow gets hot in October and has a good postseason, then that's perfectly fine with me,
Yeah. Here's a good question from Sean Campos, kind of getting off the Bellinger topic real quick. He asked the question, is the bullpen getting too much work? Starters only going 4 innings. Obviously, I missed on the broadcast tonight where Robert said Gonsolin was only going to go about 4 innings, 65 to 70 pitches. So that makes more sense. At the time, I was like, what am I missing? Gonsolin was looking great, and they pull him for Gonzalez, who makes his major league debut. It was not great. It was fine. I mean, he gives up 1 run. Could have been worse. I mean, I don't get the sense. I mean, these guys, they have so many arms down there that guys are getting nights off. Treinen and Jansen didn't pitch last night. And so I don't feel like it's a fact of overworking, but the same thing goes is mathematically. I mean, if your starter only goes 4, every reliever that you bring in, if one guy is having an off night, it throws everything for a loop. So the first guy comes in, he's okay, but the margin shrinks because he gives up a run. Trinan's a mess. Joe Kelly didn't look great. I mean, it was kind of the perfect storm, if you will. But any concerns about the amount of innings that the bullpen is having to throw this early?
No, I mean, I think this is something we expected coming into the season. You know, we knew the first couple weeks starters weren't going to be going deep into games. It was a short summer camp. Plus, you add in the fact that two guys you thought you'd be able to rely on are already on the IL. So
Yeah.
Tony Gonsolin wasn't even supposed to be up yet. He's still supposed to be back at USC, continuing to build up his pitch count. So I thought what they got out of him, 4 innings, no runs, I thought that was, as good as you could have asked for. And yeah, the bullpen's throwing a lot, but there's also a lot more arms down there. It's a 30-man roster instead of 25. So it's, as a whole, the bullpen may be overworked, but I don't think there's any individual arm that they've been overworking to this point. No one's thrown more than 2 games in a row. No one's really thrown more than an inning at a time. So, and to this, up until tonight, the bullpen's been incredible. They had an ERA right around 1. And they've been a big reason why the team was 5-2 coming into tonight. So I think it's just an off night for the bullpen. I'm not going to get too concerned. It's still early, and they've, for the most part, they've still been great. Caleb Ferguson has been lights out so far. He had another good outing tonight. And Trinan looked good early. Maybe if Turner makes that play, he has, a scoreless inning and the Dodgers go on to win. So I'm not going to get too worked up over the bullpen, at least at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot. One other thing that I was just thinking about with the Trinan situation, it is interesting, first of all, that of the Dodgers' losses, this is the second one where Dave Roberts is kind of finding himself right at the middle of the conversation. One of the losses against the Giants, of course, they sort of ignored the platoons. They love platoons some nights. It's like they love the splits and some nights they don't. But
interesting.
The one other thing I was thinking when they did intentionally walk was that Trinan had kind of been all over the place. I think at one point he had thrown 8 of 19 pitches for a strike. So that was just another random data point in my head was, why are we putting a guy on? Now the walk isn't an option. It's like if you get 3-0, you're just screwed at this point. And for a guy who couldn't throw strikes, of course, it didn't matter because the first one was right down the middle and got smacked for a double. And so it'll be interesting to watch. A couple people pointed out in the chat, which I think is interesting, and then we'll shift to some good news. There is some good news from the Dodgers tonight, is Justin Turner. He was another guy who had a rough night. Right in the middle of the lineup. I mean, you look down at the box score, Muncy, 1 for 4, Betts, who we'll get to in a second. Then you've got an 0 for 5 with Bellinger, 0 for 4 with Turner, 4 strikeouts between them. Jock Peterson, also an 0 for 4. Austin Barnes, 0 for 2. We'll get to the Austin Barnes best moment of 2020, the sacrifice bunt. Maybe not. But, I mean, again, Turner's not a guy we're worried about. We keep talking about the Dodgers hitting. I mean, they just have not been able to sort of piece this together, put it together. We keep asking, and it's probably not even worth talking about, but I mean, any level of concern for any of these guys. Turner, this was kind of one of the first games. I mean, he's been okay. He's hitting 267 on the year, so nothing to worry about there. But I mean, as a whole, again, we'll get to Betts and Seager here in just a second, but as a whole, as a group, I mean, is the confidence level improving in your mind? Like, do you feel more confident day after day that these guys are figuring it out?
Yeah, it's been a weird start to the season. We saw they were crushing the ball in the exhibition games against Arizona and the Angels, and we thought they were just going to come in and roll over everyone, and they kind of did that the first 2 games against the Giants. And then from there, it's been pretty quiet. They won a couple games against the Astros, mainly because of their bullpen, I'd say. Last night, their offense broke out a little bit. They scored some runs early, but then kind of got quiet the last 5 innings. And then tonight was another pretty much overall quiet night other than a couple guys. So it is a little concerning, but at the same time, we've still seen some good individual performances. And we know how deep this lineup is. It doesn't have to be every guy every night. There's going to be, some nights it's going to be Corey Seager. Some nights it's going to be Mookie. So it'll be Cody eventually. Some it'll be JT. So they got plenty of bats. And considering how bad they've looked for them to be, 5-3 right now and right in the division mix, I think that's all you could ask for. And we're still only a little over a week into the season. I'm not gonna go into full panic mode that they're not hitting the ball yet.
Yeah. And I mean, part of the reason not to panic is sort of where we'll go next, which is the optimism. Corey Seager and Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts tonight, 3 for 5, a run, 2 RBIs. He had a home run. He had a double. The guy in an RBI single. he made one of the most insane throws. I mean, I loved it when Joe Davis, I think, put it on the broadcast. He threw that thing the length of a football field, put it right on the money, and threw
Yeah.
out a guy that's pretty quick, moving from second to third.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to the defense. I mean, Seager and Betts are on fire. Seager, another home run, his two hits total on the night. One stat that they mentioned that I'd seen earlier today, Corey Seager now has 17 hard hit balls this season. The second best player in all of Major League Baseball has 11. Mookie Betts has 10. Now I'm sure that number's up to at least 11 with the double. So, I mean, you basically have the number one hitter in baseball by some metrics, Corey Seager. I mean, it's hard. Everything he hits is hard. Even the single he had up the middle was absolutely smoked right up the middle. I mean, those two guys are unbelievable. They were unbelievable tonight. Mookie seems to have turned a corner, and it's almost one of those things where it's like, even if those two guys just get it figured out, the Dodgers will be fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to see Mookie break out a little bit at the plate. The throw was incredible, but we know his defense is incredible. He's been great and right so far this season. We're just waiting for his bat to come around a little bit. So looked like he turned a corner tonight. He hit the homer. He had an RBI single and then the double in the ninth inning. So that's a big night for him, and that's good to see. Hopefully he can build off that. But yeah, I think Corey Seager has been incredible this season. That's even going back to the exhibition games as well, when he was just crushing everything. So he looks like he's back to being the Corey Seager of old, which I think me and you both expected he would be. We were both kind of ahead of the curve on him. We knew he was going to have a big year.
Yeah.
It's good to get that validation to see him out there doing it. But yeah, he looks awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I will say the thing about Mookie is that gives me hope for a guy like Bellinger. I mean, we're not more than 2 or 3 days removed from kind of thinking the same thoughts. Now, I think with Mookie, it was new. Bellinger, he's got the stance, that kind of thing. I think you retweeted a guy today that was taking a look at his, like, the angle of his bat. I don't know. I don't even know how people figure this stuff out. But, I mean, it does seem like he's hitting a ton of ground balls, which is what that guy would expect to happen based on everything. So, I mean, I would say if you're looking for optimism as a Cody Bellinger fan, not only can you look at last season when he was unbelievable, the 2 seasons before when he was really, really, really good, but I think also you can just look at Mookie. Mookie's a guy who figured it out. And, I mean, ultimately, Bellinger's probably putting more pressure on himself than anyone, because at the end of the day, he's an unbelievable hitter, but in this lineup, they've got 6 other guys that can carry the load any night. So there's optimism for me in saying all he needs to do is look at Mookie Betts and say, hey, that guy had a terrible start too. He's figuring it out. He's dialed in. Let's get this thing going.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen from Bellinger, at least one positive, he's not striking out all that much compared to when he slumped in the past. What he's doing is he's hitting a lot of ground balls.
Yeah.
He grounded out to second at least twice tonight. That's been a theme so far, and that could, I know people don't like hearing about launch angle, but that could have to do with the bat path of his swing and his launch angle. So, and I know the Dodgers hitting coaches Robert Van Scoyoc and Brant Brown, they're probably all over that. They're big on launch angle, they're big on bat path, so they're probably working with him, and he'll break out at some point.
Yeah, yeah. And one other topic that I see a couple people mentioning in the comments that I think has been a topic of conversation in Dodger circles this year is the batting order. Mookie Betts, Max Muncy rotating between first and second, Bellinger and Turner rotating between third and fourth. The Dodgers have basically decided that if a left-hander's on the mound, they'll have one lineup. If a right-hander's on the mound, they'll have the other. This coming off a year when Mookie Betts basically hit leadoff every single day for Boston. Yeah. As somebody who didn't play this game at unbelievably high levels, part of me thinks, does this really matter? Is this something that people outside of the game make way more of a big deal of? I mean, ultimately, it's really only the first inning when that at-bat is different. Every other inning is a completely random, whether you're batting first or whether you're batting second or whether you're batting, sixth. So to me, it feels insignificant, and yet some people make a big deal out of it. I'm curious what you think. I mean, you played more baseball than I did. Is this a big deal, or are these guys professional hitters, and who cares?
I don't want to make a huge deal out of it, because no matter how you order this lineup, it's still a good lineup. They're stacked 1 through 9 when Will Smith is playing, of course. But so I don't want to make a huge deal of it. But also at the same time, going all the way back to spring training in February, you had Mookie said that he's most comfortable in the leadoff spot and he enjoys the leadoff spot. And then, around opening day, when Max Muncy was hitting leadoff, he said that's something he's never done before and he's not exactly comfortable with it. So I think there is something to consider there. You want these guys to be comfortable and you want to put them in the best position to succeed. So I don't see why it necessarily matters if it's righty lefty or lefty righty. I would prefer just putting Mookie leadoff and leaving him there. And then honestly, we're getting pretty close to the point where I'd move Corey Seager up to the 2 spot. That's where he had, that's where was used to being early in his career. And then you get Max Muncy down there in the 5 hole probably. So you got a little more power down there. That's probably, if it was up to me, that's how I would order it. And I would the top 5, I would just leave that every day, honestly. But I don't think it's a huge deal. I think these guys are going to hit no matter where they are. And I also think it's early in the season, so if there's any time to, tinker with different lineups and try new things, now's the time to do it. But I hope by the time, the end of the regular season and the postseason rolls around that they could have something sort of established, at least for the top 5 guys, where that's where they are every day and they could get comfortable.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if you wanted to make the argument that who cares, Mookie was 3 for 5 out of the 2 hole today. So I guess that's the, but I'm with you. And I mean, there might be one game, one season where the difference between your number 1 guy, he gets 5 at bats and everybody else gets 4. But right. It's just a storyline to watch. This is an interesting one, and we can get to. I mean, obviously Mookie makes the unbelievable throw in the first inning. First batter, Marte hits a ball where his bat just shatters. Somehow he drops a ball perfectly in between 3 defenders. It rolls all the way into the corner. Mookie rushes over. And part of me is like, why is he rushing? I mean, the guy's going to cruise into second. This isn't a play. Well, sure enough, he tries to take it to third. And Mookie, gives him a Yasiel Puig all the way to third base. 100 yards, 300 feet, right on the money, throws him out. Unbelievable play. And, I saw lots of people having the same reaction I did, which is we knew this guy was fast. We knew he took good angles. We knew he was a great fielder. I don't think I knew that he had a cannon like that. I mean, was that even on your radar?
I mean, I knew he had a good arm, but I did not know he had that in him. That was, like you said, that was Puig-esque right there. So, I mean, we've talked on this show about how great Mookie is, how he's a 5-tool player, and I think in his first week plus as a Dodger, he hasn't even been at his best, but he still showed us that he's capable of doing literally everything on a baseball field.
Yeah, and that leads to one of the questions Gabe asked on Facebook, which is he pointed out the fact that when Trinan came in, he actually got an entirely new outfield behind him. Everybody was moved around. Mookie was in center field. Kind of an interesting thing. Bellinger comes in. Pollock had pinch hit, so I believe Pollock was in left field. They moved Taylor to second base. And I don't know who was in right field at that time, but with Jock was. Okay, that's right. And so Mookie's in center field. Well, the double that ends up scoring everybody goes over Mookie's head. Now, Mookie, I appreciated the fact that he took an aggressive line to that ball to try and make an unbelievable play. But you have to wonder. I mean, Bellinger has played way more innings out in center field. Yeah. He's probably more comfortable than Mookie there. They're both unbelievable defenders. I mean, does that cross your mind at all? Like, what are we doing there? Does that impact things, or is it just who cares?
I think Cody probably would have made that play. So, I was a little confused why they made those changes, I guess. It also was a bit of a weird night defensively, though, because Muncy was DHing and Edwin Rios was playing first. So then when they pinch hit Pollock for Rios, someone had to play first. Obviously, Pollock's not going to do it, so they moved Cody in. He hasn't really gotten a lot of work at first. I don't know how much work Mookie's gotten in center. We know that they're both gold glovers in the outfield when Cody's playing center and Mookie's playing right, so I'd prefer just to leave him there. But I guess with Muncy DHing and them wanting to bring in the righty bat and Pollock late in the game, they didn't really have any other choice other than to put Cody at first there. So it's unfortunate that then maybe the one ball that Mookie doesn't catch and Cody would have caught is the one that happened there. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. And if you're just catching up, I see lots of people in the comments mentioning, obviously we talked a lot about that intentional walk to Escobar, the worst hitter of the two, to get to Walker, a guy who's hitting much better, over 300, who's killed the Dodgers, it feels like, in a lot of big moments. And, it's just not something either of us agree with for a lot of reasons, whether it's because Trinan couldn't control the ball and do you really want to take away the ability to walk a guy and not walk in a run? Do you want to put on the go-ahead run and see exactly what happened? Not to mention the Escobar versus Walker thing. So that's definitely a questionable thing. And, I think there's a lot of debate on Dodger Twitter right now. Is that an Andrew Friedman call? Is that a Dave Roberts call? Who knows? I'm sure those two guys are pretty aligned on most things. So it definitely is an interesting one. And it's one of those things, if we're being perfectly honest, that if Trinan gets a ground ball there, we're not even talking about it. That just falls off the radar. The only way that we talk about that is if a double or a home run comes next, which is exactly what happened. And I think Roberts is just expecting his guy to get it out. Trinan's been really, really good this year. He just didn't have it tonight, and it all comes back to bite him.
Yeah. Hindsight's a bit 2020. Everyone kind of overreacts a little bit whenever the bullpen implodes and wants to, come for Dave Roberts' throat. I do think it's a fair criticism this time, though. I wouldn't have gone with the intentional walk there, as we talked about earlier. And I also do think it was a bit interesting. We saw pretty much the exact same situation in the top of the ninth. Mookie hits the double. The go-ahead runs at the plate. First base is open. You got a lefty in Cody Bellinger up there that's struggling. His numbers are similar to Escobar's. And then you got the righty on deck who's swinging the bat better, and Justin Turner. And the Diamondbacks opted to pitch to Cody, and one pitch later the game was over. So it was two different approaches there, and one worked and one didn't tonight. Who knows? Maybe if the same thing happens again, maybe Cody hits a homer and everyone's saying, they should have intentionally walked him. So
and for what it's worth, there was a conference at the mound. The pitching coach did come out before Bellinger. So I have to think that was part of the conversation, that he came out and said, hey, Archie, who do you like? Do you want the righty Turner or do you want Bellinger? And so, just as the point to say, maybe it wasn't as crazy as everyone wants to make it out to be. I mean, it's something that every team is at least thinking about and at least discussing. They may not came to the same conclusion, but they did. So that's what happened. Obviously, Turner makes an error in that inning, as a couple people have pointed out as well, which hurts. And ironically, right, the Dodgers bullpen had this huge stretch of unearned runs coming into the game. I believe the first run that was given up was earned, so that one hurt him. But all of Trinan's runs ended up being unearned because of it. So Trinan's ERA remains 0. Joe Kelly ERA remains 0 somehow. So there's your ERA.
I guess the bullpen's ERA is still right around 1 then.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a couple other things that's sort of worth talking about tonight, and I think one big one is Tony Gonsolin. I joked on Twitter. I said our 8th best starting pitcher is way better than your 8th best starting pitcher, and Gonsolin was proof of that tonight. I mean, for a guy that nobody really knew, 4 innings, nobody really knew where he was at because he had been at USC. We didn't get to see him at summer camp. 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. He throws 40 of 63 pitches for strikes. I mean, he was throwing as hard as I've ever seen him. I think he was hitting 96 pretty consistently, may have even touched 97 once. I mean, we could look at this lineup and say Arizona's really, really struggled to hit, but the flip side is they hit against our bullpen. So I think that it's worth noting that, I mean, Gonsolin's really good. It's a reminder that this guy would start for just about every team in the league, just not the Dodgers.
Yeah. I feel like Gonsolin kind of gets overlooked a bit in the bunch with all their top prospects, with May and Urias and Josiah Gray and all those guys. But whenever he's gotten an opportunity at the big league level, he's looked really good. He knows how to get outs. He threw hard. He threw his hardest tonight, but he's not overpowering the way Dustin May or Grad or all those type of guys are. So he's a true pitcher. He lives at the bottom of the zone a lot. And he got a lot of ground balls tonight. Only struck out 1 guy, but he was efficient. He looked good. I wish he was built up to go a few more innings, and then maybe the Dodgers hang on and win that one. But I think it was a good first outing for him. We'll have to see what's next with him, because with Kershaw coming back, I don't know if he'll remain in the rotation. So maybe he goes to a long relief role. And if that's the case, that's another really good arm you're adding to that bullpen.
Yeah, it is interesting to think. I mean, obviously when Kershaw comes back, he and Buehler at the top of the rotation. Urias is the only other guy from the sort of first choice 5 that's still healthy. Mm-hmm. And then you've got May, and you've got Gonsolin, and you've got Stripling. I mean, that's too many arms right there with Wood on the DL. That's 6, I believe, if my ability to count on a Friday night this late is still functioning. So, I mean, of those
You're right.
6, is Gonsolin the guy that gets the odd man out? I mean, Dustin May, there were some numbers on StatCast today that, there's some metrics saying he's basically been like the best pitcher in baseball this year, by some metrics. And obviously Urias is part of the 5, and Stripling was their 6th choice, and he's been pretty good, all things considered. So, I mean, is that how you see it? Does Gonsolin get the guy? Is he the guy that gets the bump, whether it's out to the bullpen or back to USC?
I think so, at least for now. Obviously, Kershaw and Buehler aren't going anywhere. They've committed to Urias as a starter, so he's going to have a longer leash than 1 or 2 starts, that's for sure. And then Stripling and May have both looked, pretty good. So I don't see how you could tell either of those guys they're going to the bullpen after how they've pitched in their first 2 starts. So while it's unfortunate because of how good he looked tonight, I don't think, barring another injury, of course, that we're going to see Tony Gonsolin starting the next couple times through. But we'll see what they do with him. I don't know if they're going to send him back to USC so he could stay built up, or if they make him the long man in the bullpen. It'll be interesting to see. I think with the shortened season and the need for bullpen arms, I think it makes sense to keep him in the bullpen and not have him go just hang out at USC for maybe half the season. And also you got to start thinking about pretty soon here who's going to be in your bullpen postseason roster. Yeah. So you want to get him some experience coming out of the bullpen if he's going to be an arm you want to count on in October.
Yeah, and I believe we're just a couple days away from them having to send a couple extra guys. I think they go down from 30 to 28 on the 14th day, which is, it's obviously 5 or 6 days, next Thursday, and then down to 26. So it'll be interesting. I mean, a couple of people are noting in the comments, and we'll kind of end with this, is just looking around the division. I mean, we know how many teams make the playoffs this year, so there's a part of you that thinks, like, who really cares about, a game like this? But then you look at the standings, and the Dodgers are currently 3rd place in the NL West. The Padres are 6-2 on the season. The Rockies are 4-2. The Dodgers are 5-3, and the pesky Giants sitting at 4-4, just a game back. So, I mean, we both talked about how we like the Padres. I think 6-2 is probably surprising, but we both thought that was this clear second best team in the division. Right. I think the Rockies, I mean, it's 4-2, it's early, but at some point you have to start talking about this, right? You can't just say it's early in a 60-game season forever. So, I mean, is there anything, I don't know how much of the Rockies games, I haven't gotten to see much of them, but is there anything, their pitching seems to be doing okay, all things considered. Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a question we can ask on a regular basis, but if 0 is no worry whatsoever and 10 is the Dodgers aren't going to make the playoffs, where are you on the panic meter, 0 to 10?
I'd say I'm at a 0.01.
Okay.
Like, I'm not even close to being there yet. We're a week into the season. The Padres have played some good baseball. The Rockies have played some good baseball, but neither of those teams have played the Dodgers yet. The Dodgers haven't even got hot yet, and they're still sitting at 5-3. So whenever they get hot and go on that 7-8 game winning streak that we've seen out of them in the past, we'll see them jump into first place. And even if they don't, as long as they're right in the mix, that's all that really matters in this season. There's not a true home field advantage. Like, other than the fact that they want to keep their streak going of consecutive years winning the division, there's no real reason that they need to win the division other than that.
Totally. I mean, and as you said, they're in 3rd place right now, which makes the playoffs. So there's not really any need to panic on that front. And it'll be interesting. I mean, it's like one of those things where nobody's ever experienced this before. And we said before the season, I joked, I said, hey, as long as they take 2 out of 4 against the Giants and just sort of get into the season, ease themselves in without having to feel the panic, I'd feel okay. Obviously, I felt a lot worse about that in the moment than I predicted I would feel. Yeah. But I think that's kind of from my foresight was, if you told me they were 5-3 at this point, I wouldn't really care where they were in the standings, because at 5-3, the season has started. Things have gotten to get moved. It started to get moving, and you just assume that once this thing normalizes or gets as close to normalization as possible, the Dodgers are going to be fine. Now, it's a conversation for another day of if we even have one of these shows next week. There's rumors of that Major League Baseball has told TV broadcasters, hey, don't count on any, no guarantees on baseball beyond Sunday. So hopefully we are doing the show again next Friday night. But I think I'm with you. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm a genuinely anxious person to begin with in some of these things. And so maybe I'm slightly higher than 0.001 or whatever your number was. I might be at 0.5 or something like that. But it definitely feels like, man, the number of things that would have to go wrong or just never click between now and the end of the season for somehow the Giants to be 5 games over 500 and sneak into that third spot is incredible low. So, who knows? Who knows how that plays out? But we'll see. We'll see. Now, it's an interesting weekend, just to look ahead briefly before we go here. It's an interesting weekend because we get Kershaw and we get Buehler over the weekend. What do you?
Well, it's Uri is first tomorrow.
Right. Sorry.
Kershaw Sunday. Yeah.
Sunday and Monday for Kershaw and Buehler. I mean, Urias tomorrow, as you point out, then Kershaw, then Buehler. I mean, anything in particular that Urias? We've only gotten to see him once. It's kind of not a great start. So obviously hoping to see better things from him. Kershaw. I mean, if they can get 4 or 5 solid innings out of Kershaw, and then hopefully Buehler, we just start to see some ramping up a little bit, a little bit more dominance, some more pitches, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'll start with Urias. I think he was a guy we were both high on coming into the season. It's his first real opportunity in a while as a member of the rotation, and we were both expecting big things. He didn't look great in his first start, but with that being said, it was his first start. So I'm kind of excited to see how he looks tomorrow. Hopefully he comes out and pounds his zone and is efficient so he could get deeper into the game than he did in his first start. But yeah, I'm expecting a better outing from him. And then as far as Kershaw goes, I just want to make sure he's healthy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Whatever he gets through is awesome. But the main thing is if he could come out of that start healthy and the back issues behind him and he'll be on his way to another good season. And then Buehler, he's just got to continue building his pitch count. He only threw 63 pitches or so in his first outing. So hopefully he could get up more towards 80, 85 pitches on Monday, and then the next time around he'll be fully built up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. Again, the plan, as I mentioned, is to do a live show like this every Friday night, now pending some stuff, but that's the ultimate goal. Maybe a recorded show early in the week. We'll see how that goes. But that'll do it for us tonight. A tough one for the Dodgers. They blow a late lead in the 8th inning. The bullpen that has been so good comes back to bite them. Questionable move from Dave Roberts. But the good news, Dodger fans, is if you're looking for a ray of hope, Mookie Betts, the guy you paid $365 million to, he looked like that guy tonight. Unbelievable defensive play and right. 3 for 5, 2 RBIs, a home run. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the swing on the home run. Heck of a swing. I'm not sure they teach that one in fundamentals class, but he gets the job done. He looked like the part of the guy that's worth $360 million. Corey Seager continues to rake. He gets his 3rd straight game with a home run. So there are some positives. There's not a ton of reason to panic yet. Obviously, we'd all like to see the offense get going where they're just cranking out 5-6 runs night in and night out as the starting pitching and bullpen starts to come together. But that'll do it for us tonight. We appreciate you watching. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com for the latest information recap. I'm sure check out the Dodger Blue YouTube channel. I'm sure we'll have some great post-game coverage. We usually get post-game interviews, that kind of thing. So we might get some stuff from Dave Roberts commenting on the decision that he made there. We'll see. So we appreciate you watching. Check us out next week. Check out DodgerBlue.com on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And that'll do it for us tonight. Have a good one.